everything.
I mean, you know what English culture's like, don't you? It's kind of specialises in passive aggressivity, rather than actual aggressivity. And like you were saying, the displacement, we displaced it all onto the violence on the animals, which we're consuming.
I mean, they're literally like one of the saddest things for me in terms of how we kill animals is knowing that they dump these pigs, boil them alive in these gas chambers. Like alive. I've seen videos and they're screaming. It's like, oh my gosh. I don't think anyone could just be straight face observing that. It's horrible. It's just lowering them down into this boiling hot chamber.
Yeah.
It's like, and all these things that we're doing is absolutely.
How can we change it then? It's a question.
Well, it is changing. You can see it. I'm sure you're observing, right? You're getting more and more vegan products in the stores. There's Sainsbury's are trialing a vegan butchers. I'm not sure which Sainsbury's, but the selected stores. So it's changing. It's happening. I do believe that there isn't one right only way. Like, you have to be like demonstrating, or you have to be doing Facebook posts. All of it, like holistically, is leading us to the I guess paradigm where we see animals as more than just objects.
There's a refrain in the vegan world that vegan capitalism isn't the solution. So we can have this bubble, within the current capitalist model of veganism. But I feel that it's not really the solution ultimately. And that for example, take the parliamentary debate after Extinction Rebellion, and what they're saying is, what we're going to do is change, turn a quarter of the grazing land in the UK into forest land, and that farming can stay the same.
A quarter of the UK's land?
Grazing land. So that grazing land is about 60%. So a quarter of 60 is 15%. We're going to turn over to woods. And then farming can stay the same, and we'll save the world that way. But that speaks to me that it's a kind of countryside alliance of kind of recreational stuff for the landed people. Meanwhile, the city people can have stem cell meat and hydroponic kind of warehouse grown vegetables. And for me, that the scenario could go that way if we don't stay alert. And a vegan diet is not necessarily healthy.
Oh, that's completely true. Yeah, it's not. Vegan doesn't equal health, not at all. You can be unhealthy. You can be unhealthy as a vegan.
Finally, someone who's honest about it and not like selling it as this alternative, enlightening decision that the whole of humanity has to take. I mean, we could talk to him and he would utterly disagree with us. But from the stuff that I've seen from like ex-vegans and just the research, and like any doctor, like good doctor will tell you that vegan diet is the best.
Well, doctors aren't qualified in nutrition in general.
That's true.
Don't
Yes,
know much about
fair
it.
enough, but I said a good doctor, remember. So there are things lacking that are very difficult to replace, like just by plants. And
And I think that
reality.
the supermarkets in general can't provide for a really vital diet. But my response is that a permaculture world that is like the Garden of Eden, return to the Garden of Eden where you've got a diversity of plants. Actually, a plant-based diet is fine. And all vegans are going to be eating insects anyway. When they're drinking their orange juice or having whatever processed food, they're going to be having some insects in there anyway.
Yeah, that's I mean, that's one of the biggest arguments they use when they're like, I saw Piers Morgan, not that he's
Oh gosh.
it gets kind to use, but he was like, whenever you eat your bread, like just know what happens in the process. All these field mouses and rats and insects and.
But that's what people don't understand. It's about, like I said to you, sir, it's about doing the best you can. There's no way you can be 100% free from animal harm. It's about doing the best you can.
But what I was
But then
talking-
that's like me saying I do the best I can. I have meat like once a week or something.
Well, then that's the best you can.
Yeah, it's
What
that
can I
fine.
say? How can I say no?
Because I
Who
always
am I?
get the vibe from the vegans that that's not good enough.
I'll be honest, right? When I first went vegan 4 years ago, I might have been that guy.
Okay.
But I've chilled. Because I understand, like I was saying to someone else, literally even a moral argument, you can't change someone's mind on the spot. They have to arrive to the understanding themselves, just as it did with me. I used to argue against vegans. But it came to me, to be honest, like long story short, through a lot of so-called inner work, meditation, things like that. I became more peaceful within myself. So that became a reflection of how I am in the outside world. Because within me, I'm more peaceful. I cannot look at unnecessary violence and be a part of it. That's just me. But there's no way I can tell you you have to be vegan. That would be wrong to me.
Well, what I was saying was about land reform and how that there are some environmental arguments which are saying we bring back nature, we bring back wild species, we plant lots more trees and diversity, but it's only for the rich. You know, the poor can stay in the cities and rot. You know, and that they can have all those vegan substitute foods which aren't very healthy, and that we really need to be alert to that and recognise that what I was saying was that vegan capitalism isn't the solution. That we actually need land reform.
I like that.
Back to the land.
Vegan capitalism.
And it's like the green wall that they're supposedly building in Africa, sub-Saharan Africa. They've chucked billions of pounds at it, but found it doesn't succeed because it only succeeds when you have people on the ground who are invested in that land, who maintain the plants, who maintain the land. Otherwise, you plant the trees and they all die. You know. Need some human intervention that's maintained to look after the ecology.
Do you actually eat meat once a day? Would you say?
Not often. I won't.
Once a week.
Yeah, I don't eat meat that often.
Okay.
You know, it's.
And that's why.
Because I believe it's not that great to eat meat as much. I believe that the industry that fosters the meat is careless to a very big extent, and it's making people ill also.
Going on? I need to get me more videos.
They're sick animals, aren't they? They're sick animals.
Yeah,
if they're kept in
eating
horrible
sick
conditions.
things.
Yeah. So, what would you expect the produce of, you know, these? Because animals and all these things, they have spirits and they have feelings and emotions. You know, I don't know how the understanding of time, but the other day I heard that dogs have sort of an understanding of time or something like that. They are creatures, and but I'm a bit in the middle. I have a lot of sympathy for like vegans because I understand what they're really angry with. It's the modern way of keeping animals and slaughtering them. It's like, you know, the modern
factory farming.
Yes, they're pretty much against that idea, and so am I.
But I'm also angry at the aristocratic class who are there, who wouldn't dream of going to the supermarket. They're having wild deer.
Thank you
They're
very
having
much.
wild
Thank you
salmon.
very much.
You know, and,
the
and
good
they
stuff.
probably look down on the people in the city eating factory food, factory farm food.
It's true.
And there's places in Sussex I know they're rewilding, bringing back nature, but they've got 3,000 acres, and they're not making money off the land. They're making money in the city.
Just the
So
other
they
day,
can afford to do that.
Just the other day, in fact, I was writing like something up for uni, and then I had to look at like because there's a trend happening across the board, like in many industries, fashion, automobile industry, car industry. You know, brands like Tesla are trying to change the way we look at transportation by introducing electricity instead of fuel and increasing their CEO what's it called, output. There was like this book and it describes different types of vegans, and then there was one type of vegan that called the real classic vegans, and then like Prince Charles and them are in there, and that's the ones that you're talking about, the ones who are like very eco-friendly but then have like wild or any other like upper echelon food that is really connected to nature, and that's a reality. And then we live in a time where there's a lot of trends happening at the moment. Anyway, I mean, the far right. I feel that's a trend. I just being honest. I feel like it's just a trend. All these like excitement. That there's a political change. It's a bit like atheism, Atheism was like this big thing like a few years ago, and all the statistics are showing that it isn't a thing anymore. People are now looking to other alternative alternative spirituality.
There's definitely a lot more since the internet, social media, and YouTube particularly.
all these energy solutions, though, they're highly, like the corporate ones, are highly unecological.
Yeah.
Like these big wind turbines or these big dams or whatever.
Yeah.
They're not ecological, they're not efficient. What you need is lots of small wind turbines that are fitted on people's houses. You need lots of small scale projects that small business can manage rather than these big infrastructural
It's
projects.
actually quite interesting that you're saying that. I came across like a whole genre of intellectual thought. It's called spiritual economy. And then you have like these people like Schumacher, he's written a book.
Small is beautiful. Yeah.
Right? So all of this is very interesting. And it talks about smaller management, like communities. And I believe in that also. I believe that it's manageable and it's more authentic. It's more authentic.
So I was saying to someone here, I don't know if you know Pavlov, but I was asking him, these very intelligent researchers, to look into permaculture. And permaculture and no-dig methods are basically saying the plough is extremely inefficient.
Yeah.
It's very quick, but we equate speed with efficiency.
That's true, we do.
You can plough a field up really quick
Yeah.
and put loads of seed down. But it just means that one person can dominate an area of land. It doesn't mean what it's producing is abundant. It's the opposite. And you need, when you plough, you open up the ground to dehydration from the sun, from the wind. It destroys the fungal life, the bacteria.
Yeah.
Nature, the worms are there that aerate the soil.
Yeah.
You imitate nature, you plant a diversity of crops. Something is always going to succeed if something fails. And you actually get more abundance in that way. And also nature can thrive within those systems as well.
But that's it goes back to the idea of economy, right? Like you were saying, that's the perfect representation of GDP. It's one person who apparently produces a lot.
Yeah.
It contributes to
Look how much I'm producing for everyone. Yeah.
Right. And there has to be a shift in it. I mean, I don't know where I was reading this, but there was this person is like, we have to change the way we value and we measure our success.
It's the same with the animals. Look how many sheep I've got. Look how many goats I've got. Look how powerful I am. It all comes from there, and they won. They won the war. The herdspeople won.
Yeah.
They're in all the positions of power. The cowboys, or what you want to call them.
Yeah. So what do you think is the change?
Permaculture, community-based permaculture systems. Because in this country, homeowners own 5% of the land. Nothing.
Yeah.
And that's what we need to get back to.
So how attractive do you make this to people who want to have like gains?
Well, we say, look, basically, there's a scientific consensus that we're destroying the planet, so no one wins if we carry on in the system that we're at. Permaculture systems require human management. It's human resource heavy.
Yeah.
But it's not. You don't need the inputs. You don't need the pesticides, the herbicides, the fertilizers, the machinery. It's very logical, and it's for everyone's salvation. I mean, the rumours are the super wealthy are building bunkers and trying to get out of space or whatever. But that's not a real-time solution.
It's gonna go and colonize Mars.
Right? Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Mars banana.
So,
Charge you.
What can I ask you? So I was asking, what do you eat usually? Like,
so I soak my own hemp seeds and I blend them up in the morning, so they've soaked overnight, and I strain it. It's a bit like milking a cow. You put it through the muslin, you've got to squeeze it out. And then in the springtime, I'm mixing that with nettles and stuff from the garden, so I make it like a smoothie. I do drink coffee.
one vice.
Yeah, well, we have children, so they've got high energy, and I feel like I'm left behind otherwise. A little bit. If I was living in a more holistic community, I wouldn't feel like that. But as it is, we have to,
Was do you eat grains? Like, do you eat rice and do you eat flour?
Yeah. I think that I've done raw food as well, and I think that's a logical way forward. But actually, it's a question of stability, isn't it? And I think that in order to manage my situation, I have to dumb myself down a bit with the grains and stuff. Stabilise.
What about meat? No meat at all, or every now and then?
No. So I used to have some roadkill, and I used to get stuff from the bins. I was in that culture. But I did make the decision quite early on that I wasn't going to pay for the industry.
When you say roadkill, like which animals?
Deer. There was a friend in a community, he used to get all sorts. So I did try badger one time. Like the gypsies people in general don't recommend eating carnivores because it intensifies the toxins.
Roadkill. Okay.
But I do rainbow gatherings, and for a long time I sort of questioned what the meaning of rainbow gatherings was, whether it's we're returning to a hunter-gathering style or whether we're evolving to a more kind of globally aware consciousness. And I kind of sided with that side, so then I just stopped altogether with meat and dairy.
So when you had roadkill, was you vegan then? I mean, did you call yourself vegan?
Yeah, I did.
You did?
Yeah. So I became a vegetarian in '93, then I became vegan in about 2000, something like that. And then through volunteering on organic places, then occasionally I was having some roadkill. I was never really looking for it. I wasn't looking out for it.
So why did you eat the roadkill because you had to or because you wanted to?
Because it came my way, and I had an open mind about it still. But at some point, probably about 6 years ago, I decided that I was for the more solar idea that you get lighter food, that it changes your state.
But you see roadkill, is it not dangerous to eat?
Some say, yeah. I think that you need to get it quite fresh. Yeah.
Just when it happened, literally.
I think it's all right.
Car crash. Food.
Yeah.
It's interesting, yeah.
And that's certain tribes in Africa, they do that. It's not called roadkill because it's a lion that just killed the thing.
Lion kill.
Lion kill, and then like literally, I've seen this video, and then like there's like these tribal people here in the savannah, and then the lion is still munching the thing, like killing it, and they just walk with their sticks, and the lion gets scared and runs away, and then just pick the thing up, walk away with it. I was like, that's so gangster.
Did you say Somalia?
No, I don't.
I'm hearing things.
I don't know where it was. Maybe East Africa somewhere. I don't know. I don't know where exactly it was.
So that's like scavenger
Africa.
style. It's not really predatorial style, is it? I did see the YouTube documentary on the last tribe that were running the animals down. Did you ever see that one?
Yeah, I think I've seen a couple of them. Yeah. They do.
And they generally go for the older animal, don't they?
Yeah.
Because they're a bit slower. They don't go for the young, but they go for the older, slower.
There's still plenty of tribes like that who live with nature, from the place I'm from in Congo, in Kinshasa, the Pygmies, they're unfortunately being urbanized now as well, and things like that. I mean, there was a lot of these atrocities taking place in Congo with the militia, and there's actually Sheikh Danjuma, he comes here, he's excellent, right? And he talks about this. He talks about the shift of pastoral, like, hunters and gatherers, like that in Africa there's like this conflict between the two groups. So that the hunters and gatherers are being pushed out from their natural habitat into the city and all of these type of things.
Yeah, the pastoralists. It's like, what do they say, the Genduit, isn't it, in Sudan? I was out in the Calais jungle talking about the same thing.
Yeah.
And I used to work for the refugee council in the 90s. So I was in day centres and people from Congo coming down speaking, the same sort of experiences. But it's worldwide. The herdspeople are on the front line of displacement of people. Armed herdspeople.
It's and that's the thing that we in the West we don't see. When vegans, like that is a life that has been destroyed, that existed for thousands of years because of globalism, because of like capitalism, and the incompetence of say, domestic governments not able to change the situation?
We had the Enclosure Acts here in the 18th century, which basically fixed things in the way that they are now. So
what do they entail? I mean,
well, basically, there used to be the common lands, and it was the remnants of the old aristocratic system, where the people, the peasants, if you like, had rights to their bit of land, and they also had drovers' rights. You could pass through that. But as soon as they had the Enclosure Acts, it kind of fenced everything up. So that stopped even the drovers, even the herdspeople, and then things became just, towards the industrialisation of food, basically. So that's even gone beyond the conflict between the hunter-gatherer and the pastoralists. It's basically now we've got the industrial food system.
So do you think that industry of such a magnitude can be destroyed eventually?
I believe there'll be system failure. That's why I'm blessed.
Which is what? Which is overconsumption, or which is empathy, so no one cares anymore? Or?
Yeah, I think people's health. I think we've got the demographic of the baby boomers, which is a very large proportion of the population, and they're all arguing about Brexit, which is basically the walls of Europe have come down, and they're just panicking, arguing amongst themselves. The institutions collapsing, people's health collapsing, the education system's collapsing. People don't want to teach in schools anymore. All that type of thing. Thing like Grenville Towers, those kind of system failures, the pollution, the collapse of ecosystems, all those systems.
Because this reminds me pretty much of this line of thought philosophy called acceleratism. So there's a bunch of people who believe that we have to accelerate the process of collapse for like a new government to come out of the ashes like a phoenix.
Yeah, well, that's where disruption comes in. Which movements like Extinction Rebellion. I mean, some people would think that their Extinction Rebellion are trying to pressurise the government to make change. But some people think it's just to create further paralysis in order for that collapse to happen.
I don't know. I mean, I would love to, because this is the question I always ask to people who promote things like accelerating collapse of governments or revolutions. I mean, we have again revolutions in many parts of the world, such as in Sudan at the moment. There's a revolution happening, and I don't just from history, anyone, even the comment section here, can you give me an example where there was success in such an endeavor? Immediate success, because I think the culture that we're in, that's what we want. We want change now, and not make something collapse now and then wait for the next 100 years for fruits to bear. And even that is very difficult for me to find an example where that has actually happened in history. For example, if you look at the French Revolution as the best example, straight followed by the age of terror. With what was his name? The main guy, Robespierre. And he's type of individuals. And then right after, you got Napoleon in 1799 or 1791, I think. 1999. And then he is the emperor now. So I don't know. And there's the same thing happened in Sudan just recently. I mean, you had the revolution, and everyone was very happy about it. And I knew, honestly, when I saw the military sharing with them and help, I knew, just wait for them for things to cool down, and then they're going to do what they have to do. It's almost a given.
That's why it has to be decentralised. And that's why I have this issue with Extinction Rebellion. Is that they want to decentralise, but they haven't got the culture to do it, because most of the people from the core group are administrators or academics.
Interesting.
And they're good at facilitating action, but then in order to decentralise, you need to form community based on equality. And people have lost the art of doing that. But there are a lot of people who actually facilitated Extinction Rebellion who know about that. It's like the green festivals, green culture in general, where we use models of communication like the talking stick, where everyone has a turn to speak. And Yeah, hopefully. I mean, it's never going to be the hippies that facilitate a rebellion, because one, no one takes them seriously, and two, they're not action-based. So you need a kind of spearhead action-based movement, but then that action-based movement needs to be receptive to that community-based model. And I think that struggle is happening internally within Extinction Rebellion right now.
Super interesting what you're saying, because it just makes me, and that's precisely what's happening in France. You had all these, Napoleon was made. He wasn't a one-man army. Like, he was made. There was people around him. There was the age of enlightenment. It was like you said, a culture, a breeding ground for it. And he was the executioner. He knew how to execute it. And I don't know. It's so. We live in like very fickle times. The times that we live in are very strange, and we have lots of opinions. And what annoys me the most is that the conversation isn't nuanced anymore. I mean, like the baby boomers and Brexit, for example. The conversation is not nuanced at all. It's like, it's grief, it's emotions. I'm sorry, that's just how I feel about it. I mean, we had 3 years to kind of see and dissect what is it actually, what is at the bottom of this rebellion, against the elite, against the globalists. And till now, I still feel like it's not substantial enough. What they're complaining about, or what it is that...
There's a fear, particularly in this country, because we've got the sea in between us and Europe, of the tremors of people coming from Africa and the Middle East because of war and monoculture displacing people.
But yet, I think UK took in 100 people?
And not very many.
So
we can't, but it's like, UK getting at the bottom of the list in the Eurovision Song Contest. All of Europe hates us because we're trying to separate ourselves and say, look, let's wash our hands from all of this.
But does that not go hand in hand with what you were saying about decentralization? Or are you talking about a very loose model of decentralization where there's... Because I feel there has to be some belonging.
Well, the model that I have for reform is you have a protectionist government. The government's role is to protect initially regions. So you have people who advocate for a regional grid as opposed to a national grid. And then you'd say in that region you can't export energy or food unless you've got a surplus. And you can't import unless you've got a deficit. So at the moment we've got a global market where everyone sends stuff right around the world. So in Cornwall you'll send your potatoes to Taiwan, and Taiwan send their potatoes to Cornwall. It does make no sense ecologically. So you have that, and when you've got your regions, then you break that down into smaller areas. And the same in those smaller areas, you can't export out that area unless you've got a surplus, and you can't import unless you've got a deficit. And then you carry on until every street is an energy-producing module, and every street is providing food. And you have governance based on the authority of the communities of what they want and what they need. And the centre, because you do need centres to be efficient, is a centre of orientation, not of power. So if you haven't got enough apples, there's no point going all around the UK trying to find out who's got surplus. You go to the centre tells you, well, down in Kent they've got surplus, so you go there. And then surplus. So you've got more than enough. You've got more than enough in your region. So you've got a surplus.
Come join in, Robert.
The opposite of a deficit. So it's where you've not got enough. So if you've got not enough potatoes, you could import.
Ali!
But if you've got loads and loads of potatoes, then
Ali!
you can export. But the way that we are now is individuals, because you've got sovereignty. You've got sovereignty of the nation and sovereignty of the individuals. So as a rich person, you can sell your potatoes anywhere in the world to the highest bidder where you think you want to sell them. And that's not environmental, that's not ecological. That's anti, and that's what's leading to the collapse.
Ecology, economy, governance. That's all you hear.
Carry on, can you both?
I'm really
interested to listen.
I actually agree with you a lot. I just don't know how it would work in practice. Because governance, one thing I've learned here from like looking at when the Americans went to Iraq and then they deposed like Saddam Hussein and they were trying to like create governance and it failed, and they've done that in other places. And then I think I was reading an article that even in ancient times that was so difficult to do. Like,
well, you have to start with the schools. Like, we home educate, and we've got a friend who's from Denmark. And in Denmark, they don't understand our political system because it's based on adversarial politics.
Okay, what's adversarial?
So one side versus another. Whereas in Denmark, they have a kind of consensus-based politics. You have lots of different parties, and so they have to work together to find solutions.
Wow, that's interesting.
And so when it was Theresa May was saying, "Oh, we're going to have to talk with Labour to get something deal across on Brexit," the Danish are saying, "Well, of course you work with the opposites on something that's a national interest. You debate it and you find out." But that starts from the school system in Denmark, or at least they used to give the children lessons in governance. But we're not taught that. We're just in our schools. It's just about administration of governance. So we're just all taught to administrate, not to exercise our authority. Which everyone's got authority, because authority just means like someone who writes a book. They're the author, aren't they? So it's just your story. Everyone's got their story.
Interesting.
The authority, and then from that authority, there comes governance, the ability to contribute to governance.
Speaking of Denmark, did you hear what happened in Denmark politically? The party that won it's a left-leaning. That's the way it was described. Left-leaning, migrant-focused, etc., etc. So it's and then I think it was a Guardian article, and it says like a lesson, a note to take for Europe, right? Because and this is what I was talking about trends, right? And for me, this right-wing emergence seems like a trend to me. It seems like a trend. Now, I mean, I can't say it 100% yet, but it seems like a trend to me. And the European elections, if you like, could be used as evidence for that, because all the right-wing parties have miserably failed, and I think that idea it's a very old idea, and I don't think it's ever going to come back like it did in the 20s, or early 30s in Italy. This like nationalistic. I'm not totally against nationalism. I think it's the reasons maybe sometimes why these values are being brought back, If it's for scapegoating, it never works, I think. It never works. You truly have to believe in it. And I feel like the current climate, it's a bit like that. It's like scapegoating, everything foreign, everything different. Or the issues that we're facing is because of them. Them and us.
Or the public in general. It's like, we're creating so much pollution with plastic. But it's like the corporations, all the plastics in the ocean, 40% is apparently from industrial fishing nets. And that doesn't reach the media. It's like all you people are responsible, and all you people are taking too many showers. Whereas, animal agriculture takes 51% in America of all fresh water.
And that's the critique I had last week. I was talking to this guy, I don't know what his name is, Ryan, I think, or something. And he's like apparently self-proclaimed far-right, whatever. And he's very like impulsive with his language. And he was saying last week to me, and I criticized him. I said, like, you see, I don't agree with Trump at all. Like, but there are certain things I agree with, which is when Trump was criticizing, even if it was for political gain, and this, what you're talking about, this like, what's that political thing called when there's contraries?
Adversarial politics.
And that's exactly what Trump was doing at that point. But
kind of like identity politics.
Exactly. He was saying, basically, he was criticizing the Democrats for what they've done in Iraq, in Afghanistan, the wastage of life and the wastage of money, and emotional, and all these other things that come with it, And I agree with Trump on that. This is true. But what the right tends not to do, for some strange reason, is that they never are self-reflective, and they never like direct the anger at one of the sources where it comes from, like, the banking, financial systems. You never hear them talking about that.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting. I came across the interview. It was by Nick Griffin. And he's been interviewed, and he says, well, we were approached by American investors. I mean, you see the link in a minute. I've been approached by American investors. They wanted to give us unlimited funds, but there's a clause, and the clause was, we don't talk about the banking system, and we stick to Islam only. Just talk about Islam and immigration, and don't talk about politics. And this is him, Nick Griffin, saying that. And the video was on the back of, I think he was critiquing Tommy Robinson, because that's what Tommy Robinson was doing.
Target, right.
And that's what he's been doing. And like, I mean, there's plenty of articles and evidence showing that he's been funded by American billionaires.
Yeah.
And so, do you see, and I don't know why people are not seeing this?
It's the same with the left wing, with Extinction Rebellion.
Yeah.
This whole thing about we've just got 12 years,
Yeah.
and this whole nebulous thing about the climate. Like, I'm not a scientist, so I don't know, but there are people, like Piers Corbyn was down here a couple of weeks ago saying that human activity is only exacerbating what is a natural phenomenon that is stimulated by the sun.
Oh, okay.
I don't know, but for me, I don't need that argument. The ecological breakdown is enough for me.
Yeah.
So they're talking about this nebulous kind of future scenario, 12 years, and putting kind of panic into people.
Yeah.
We've only got 12 years left.
Yeah.
And the argument is they're doing that in order to put people in a state of panic, so that then they will be attracted by big corporations that are saying, oh, we're becoming green, buy from us, and you'll save the planet, and people will buy into that because they're fearful, whereas they're not then being asked to examine the systemic change that needs to happen, which is land distribution, change from monoculture to permaculture, community empowerment, all those small systems.
Yeah, I think that, and that's what I meant by the conversation has to be a bit more nuanced. And there are levels to this, and there are layers to this, and every single layer has to be discussed. Like, we can't have it's weird, like Western culture, which I'm part of, like whether I like it or not, whether I'm accepted or not, I am. I do affect how people view themselves. If someone views a black person or African or whatever, or these guys are coming, so I'm affecting your perception. You affected my perception, so I'm part of this culture in that sense. But I feel like this black and white understanding, like you see, like you were saying about, like, of course, if there's something in national interest, why is it given to one party only for like 80% of the time that they're negotiating, and then towards the end they realize, oh, we've messed up Brexit. Oh, Jeremy Corbyn, do you want to come along now? And that comes from that black and white, this like right and wrong, like big and strong. Like you see it in the language of advertisement that we use, which tends to change. It's changing now. It's becoming more spiritual. There has to be like a paradigm shift, And the issue that I'm having is that people think they had a paradigm shift when it wasn't. It was like it's Hollywood, It's so superficial, like the first things, like it's like people are reacting to symptoms and they think these are the causes, and it's unacceptable.
Well, I would urge people to look towards the Green Party. I've worked with the Green Party.
They won in Europe, right?
I've been disillusioned by them in my area.
You have.
But generally speaking, it's sense, isn't it? Putting the ecology first, because we live within the ecology. And I would also, like the same with Extinction Rebellion, I've been involved on the side, and I'm also critical of the internal structure. But I would encourage people to examine it, get involved with it, because essentially it is non-violent, and that's within its principles, and it's asking for change, and to get involved, to come into the internal structure of Extinction Rebellion and make sure that it doesn't become hierarchical, and that everybody gets a voice. So they're going to have they're calling it iteration. They use this funny vocabulary. Anyway, the next iteration in London is supposedly in October.
Okay.
So I think they had
10,000 people out on the street in spring. So, yeah, I just encourage people. I came down here first to Speaker's Corner because the accusation was that Extinction Rebellion was a white middle-class phenomenon. And, you know, the environment shouldn't be something just for the white middle class to project about. It should be for everyone to have a voice.
It should be for
about.
everyone.
Yeah.
I agree.
But you see, this is I've read this article in the Guardian here. It was about cyclists, and whether cyclists are cyclists in London part of a white male middle class club, right? And they were asking people, right, from different ethnicities why they don't cycle, and they get this perception in its value systems, right? So, for example, they asked the black guy why he doesn't cycle to work, and he was like, in our culture or in our environment, if you're black and you are making a bit more money, the thing that you have to do is you get a car, because that's now like Veblen, you know, Veblen's what's that thing called? Veblen's signifiers, like
Status thing.
yeah, status thing, right? So you have a car, because if you're a grown man cycling, that's an association with like gangs and hoodlums and, you know,
Not having grown up, maybe.
not having grown up, not having progressed. And I think it is classism. It really is. It comes down to it, because as someone who is from the ends, you know, from God knows what ends you're from, like the last thing that you worry about is about the tree. You know, you don't care about the tree. You just have food on your table. You know, you want to be paying the bills, council tax, electricity, water. That's what you care about. And maybe someone from the middle class has a bit more freedom. Like these needs have been met. Like they're all being taken care of.
Yeah.
Now we can put this attention to what matters. And it's just the way the system is been built.
Yeah, and I would say, you know, if
I might be wrong. Though.
If people are privileged, then what do they do with their privilege? And if they're doing something positive with it, then I think it's a good thing.
I would love that to change. You know, I would love. There's like a quote I love, which is colonialism almost made the world a boring place.
Yeah.
Like, imagine like if, you know, colonialism was
Like
Essex.
monoculture, basically.
Yeah, it would have been so boring. Like, I'm just waiting for that time, you know, when, because they talk of diversity, right, all the time. But I'm just waiting for that time when there's an explosion of like where cultures are not being whitewashed or, you know, made suiting like for European consumers, like raw, like coming together of ideas. And I don't understand how people don't see how that is beneficial.
Well, I mean, talking about Extinction Rebellion, there's largely a bureaucratic rebellion, you know, networking rebellion.
Okay.
I'm someone who comes in who's used to festivals, who's used to catering for people on a large scale, but also out in nature. You know, there's no facilities, getting water from springs. So when I come into Extinction Rebellion, I do the setup here in blah blah, putting the kitchen up. I know people who are providing food for people. Extinction Rebellion. And then the second weekend, I go to Parliament Square. There's rumours of a meeting. There's no meeting. So I go to the centre of Parliament Square where there's a pedal-powered stage. I say, look, there was rumour of a meeting. Let's have a meeting. There's no meeting, so they advertise it. And we've got 50 people in a circle passing the stick round. And people are saying, oh, thanks for this. You know, we can express how we feel, like we're feeling under pressure because of the police. The recognition we're all in the same boat, because you had in the four corners, you had Leeds Affinity Group, Glasgow Affinity Group, Edinburgh Affinity Group, but they weren't communicating, they were in their own camps. And they'd only bump into each other in the kitchen. But to have that forum where they could all express and hear each other. And then the next day, I was in the kitchen queuing for the porridge, and then no one's stirring the pot, so I start stirring the pot. And then people are asking me for food, so I start serving them. Before you know it, I'm on the other side, and I'm saying, who's the kitchen coordinator? There's no kitchen coordinator. We've run out of gas.
apparently there's 600,000 in the Extinction Rebellion account, but they've run out of gas during their major action in the spring.
Yeah.
I have to walk up to Waterloo Bridge to go and get the gas and come back so that we're feeding the 200 or 300 people who want food. Now, to return to your point, that's okay if you've got money and you can go to Pret-a-Manger and it doesn't matter to you, but if you've got no money and you want to be part of the rebellion and there's no food because of system failure, because they haven't had a finance working group and they haven't decentralised, that's a problem. You know, that's a big problem. And if I'm devalued myself as someone who provides that service, I'm going to say, I'm not doing that, you know. And then all the people who you know, like you were saying, the unprivileged people, they're saying we're not going to get involved in that because we're not being served.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's every Roman emperor made sure that his soldiers were eating. If you're not feeding your soldiers, you're losing wars. I mean, that's as simple
the
as
same
that.
thing, you know, with the British Empire. Like my forefathers were in the military. My dad wasn't in the military, but he was in the agricultural sector. He got a diploma, you know, that he's a qualified peasant, basically. You know? But if that had been the Roman Empire, if the forefathers had served the army, they'd have got their plot of land. They'd have been free men. My, dad, he got nothing. He got told, well, you know, you'll be lucky to get a hill farm in Wales. You know. So.
Is it still in the park?
What's your name? Teo. Simon. Was it? Simon. Nice one, Simon.
Oh man, thanks. Dawood, man.
Dawood,
Nice
Muslim.
Yeah.
Assalamu alaikum. How are you, brother? I'm just very interested. If you both can just carry on.
Yeah, I mean, I
was talking about he was talking about
the Roman Empire. Yeah.
You was talking about
the British Empire in a way.
So can you carry on with the
covering like
academic
kind of
everything
I'm just saying, I would say
you said something
wipes off.
about my dad. He wasn't in the military,
Alhamdulillah.
but he didn't have any land. He wasn't given land.
All right, man, because you know,
your title.
Well, what I was saying was that the Roman Empire, if you'd
overall,
fought
man,
the Roman Empire, then you'd have been given your plot of land.
It hasn't
at the end
gone
of your
down,
time
my
of
eyes
service.
are.
Do you know what it is?
But the British Empire, you know, we've been disempowered as a people because, like, British homeowners, like the public, the people in general, only have 5% of the land.
That's it's crazy. So because I mean it's amongst like aspirational for like it's like almost normal. It's like their birthright to own a house and people kill themselves for it.
Because this is your country.
No, not in that sense. In the sense of culturally, that like you go to school, get a job, and then you have a house. It's like the American dream, like that. It's like the British
White picket fence.
right. And obviously now it has stopped because of like the house prices shooting to the sky. So, but only 5%. You said only 5% actually own.
Yeah, so all the public homeowners in general have
amount
just
to 5%.
Have 5% of the land. The rest of it is from the old aristocratic class, the corporations, the oligarchies, public institutions.
So we have plenty of land to build houses. See, no one talks about that. See,
I lived in an eco-village, and we had the benefit of a steam-driven sawmill.
There's the guy you was quoting earlier, Pablo.
Pablo. Yeah.
I'm just watching.
So,
What's that? That's a badge I made for myself. It's my symbol. You know, the symbol of Ukraine is a trident.
Oh,
And
Ukraine.
I decided to add some protrusions like horns and claws to it because Ukraine has been a very weak country and it has been very much, used by the countries around Ukraine as a border state and stuff. So I added those things, and I added in the middle something I call the mirror eye of God, which is the ability to see inside yourself, to self-perception, so self-understanding.
Are you an artist or?
A little bit.
were you wearing a crown like that at one point?
What happened to it?
Huh? The crown. It's at home.
Why?
If you want to buy it, I can sell it to you.
You look like the Green Man wearing that.
The Green Man.
Yeah.
It reminds me of like drones? Is it called drones? Drones. You know that script?
Runes.
Runes. That's the one. Yeah. Reminds me a bit of that.
When your name was brought up, it was just about me talking about permaculture and just urging you to just to research it, or just Google it and just see what permaculture is.
Okay, fine, but does it have to do with the plough? What does it have to do with the plough?
No, you don't need the plough in permaculture systems. So when
I thought we were talking about the plough. That's what I was talking about.
Yeah, and how I was saying how the plough is destructive to the ecosystem and it's not productive, as opposed to natural systems, which are highly abundant.
Okay. I don't know. I mean, I don't know a whole lot about permaculture. I was discussing with you about the plough. Again, I might look up about permaculture. About monoculture, as it's sometimes called, I think.
Well, permaculture is monoculture.
It's when the same thing is
the same thing.
The same thing is planted at the same spot. Yeah.
Whereas permaculture systems, I mean, where in nature does nature plough? Doesn't really. The leaves fall down on the surface and the worms drag it down, so the earth isn't opened up in natural systems.
Okay, fine, man.
Nature's extremely abundant.
No, but look. If people use the plough before, it means it's helpful to produce more.
Helpful in consolidating power in the hands of a few.
If
I had a plough, I could plough up all of this. It doesn't mean that 20 people could make the same use of the land more abundantly. For me, with one plough, I could do that all myself.
Bro, I mean, it means that you can plant stuff more quickly, more efficiently, and
faster.
There's more production.
Yeah, so permaculture systems require more human resource, but ultimately with regard to inputs, because human resource is essentially labour, and actually permaculture systems, once you've implemented them, they don't actually require too much human labour either.
So you're pro-permaculture instead of using the plough?
Yeah, I'm pro-permaculture, exactly. No-dig methods. You could also look up no-dig methods.
I don't know. I mean, I think if you
I know you don't know, which is why I'm asking you just to research it.
Listen. No, I don't. I'm saying I don't know metaphorically, because I do know about history that the plough and other utensils have been used very often throughout human history, and even in prehistory they have been used when humans started to settle down, especially in the Fertile Crescent. And they use those tools for a reason, because with those tools they could produce more, they could produce faster, they could had more, possibility of making more food for themselves.
An individual could, and they would do that on the basis of trade.
Bro, they couldn't. They evolved that way because it helped them. It helped their society move forward. It's part of evolution to develop new ways of working the land, of producing more.
And what I'm saying is that system is bringing us to the brink of ecological collapse.
No, it's not.
Yeah, well, that's what I would say. That's what I say. You don't think that? You don't believe in ecological crisis?
No, I do believe that humans are leaving a certain mark in terms of. You know how they say the footprint of humanity. They sometimes call it like that, of humans helping the extermination of different species. But I think sometimes people exaggerate that a bit. I don't think there's like a huge extermination around Earth that humans are the main cause of. Like, for example, the climate is changing, it's true, but it has been changing before.
Yeah,
and Piers Corbyn himself came here.
Yes, I know. Yeah, I'm not a scientist, so I'm not. And I think it's being manipulated, the use of the climate change for putting people in a state of panic. But I do believe in ecological breakdown and the desertification of the planet as a result of monoculture, the degradation of topsoils around the planet.
So what's your solution? To just stop
permaculture.
Using ploughs?
Permaculture systems based on, like for example, the Green Wall in sub-Saharan Africa. Billions of pounds have been thrown at it to no avail, because you can't just plant trees. They found that successful projects of reclaiming desertified land require community involvement and people to feel that that bit of land that they have investment in.
Look, mate. If you want permaculture, first, what exactly is permaculture for you? Is the main difference that it doesn't use pesticides, it doesn't use, like the plow, it doesn't use any utensils. You just throw the seeds and you hope for Lord, whoever he is,
you don't need
for them to grow.
You don't need to. You don't need to cast the seeds in that way. I mean, what you do is you introduce forms of fertilization, for example, that don't require fertilizer. So mulch. So in this country, for example, you've got Russian comfrey, which has been imported. There's a very good fertilizer, and you put it on top of the ground, and you can use systems like, I mean, the common misconception is that plants will feed directly off manure, for example.
So you put the fertilizer, then you just throw the seeds, and you hope that they germinate, that they grow.
There's no, you can propagate them in a traditional way, and then, but you have annuals, and you have biannuals, and you have shrubs, and you have trees. You've got different forms, and in general, permaculture systems, you form a tier. You start off with the trees, and then you have shrubs, and then you have your vegetables underneath.
Look, you're against piercing the earth.
No, I think that, for example, in nature, in general, seeds are passed in the autumn time. When do we
Just grown on top of
when
the
do
earth.
we plant seeds?
Bro, okay,
When do we plant seeds?
It depends on your definition of plant. For me, to plant something means to make a hole, to put the seed in, to put some earth on top, and that's it. You plant something.
But when do you do it?
Because if
You want to plant something.
Mostly seeds are planted in spring, right?
Oh, you mean
the seasons. When do nature cast its seeds?
autumn.
In autumn.
Oh,
Yeah. So that's just one way of showing how nature works differently to we do as humans.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So maybe change that. That would be part of permaculture as well.
Why change it? It still
Because
germinates even if you don't put it in the right,
Let me give you an example. Like I planted parsnip seeds in my garden.
Okay.
And I actually let them reach their flowering. They won't do that in the first year. If you plant them in spring, they will just grow to a certain height. They won't flower. But if you leave them to the following year, they will flower and seed the following year.
So you need to wait a year for them to flower.
That's why they're known as biannuals.
Transitional. I mean, if there was a transition, yeah.
Okay, but look,
But in
I don't
reality,
think we're thinking practically.
but in reality, if you plant the parsnip seed in an autumn, then it will germinate in the autumn and it will cover the ground, and then the following year it will flower and seed. So in effect, in the natural way, it's an annual. In the human way, we consider them as biannuals because of when we plant them.
Why are you so obsessed
Now,
in doing it the natural way?
Well, let me demonstrate. When I harvested those seeds, the following spring I made a burrow and I planted those seeds, and they came up, but they all got predated.
Predated?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know what that means?
Not quite. Not in this.
Eaten by slugs.
Huh?
Eaten by slugs.
By slugs.
Yeah. But I'd left some of the seeds on that parsnip just to do its thing.
So eaten by predators, predated. That's what. Okay.
So I left some of the seed on those parsnips. I left for a year or two, and they made
Eaten
their
by slugs when you dug them.
when I dug a hole.
Did you cover the hole with earth?
Yeah.
How
And
did
then
the slugs eat them then?
Well, they sprang up, they germinated. They germinated in a row, and once they germinated, the slugs ate them.
Well, you gotta defend them from the slugs.
But let me say,
That's why we
what
have pesticide.
What happened with the seeds that I'd left on the plant? They came up in the lawn, they came up in the compost, they came up all around the garden. And to this day, we've still got loads of parsnips all around the garden. And I didn't do anything. What do you think that seed does when it falls off? Does it dig itself a hole?
Well, no, it kind of starts germinating.
How
Look,
does it
first
do
of
it?
all,
How does it do it?
it's much more likely that the seed will get eaten or simply won't germinate if you just put it on top of the earth. If you put it underneath, there's a much bigger likelihood that it will germinate, that will start growing, a plant, and it got predated by the slugs because you didn't defend it from the slugs.
That wasn't the experience, though. My experience was that the seeds that sowed themselves.
Yeah, you just put them on
were
top of the earth.
They just did their own thing. They
Yeah,
found
okay,
their
fair
own
enough,
space,
man,
and
fair enough. But
the
it's
garden's
not
now
as
abundant.
reliable as digging a hole for them. Like with the plow. That's why we have the plow, to dig the hole, to put the seeds in, and the seeds germinate. That's it.
No, but I don't think it is reliable. I think when you have a garden,
Why have humans been doing that throughout their history?
in order to maximize profit.
Yeah. And that's
what's
the,
wrong with that?
that's the question I wanted to ask
It means
you.
they will produce more. It means it's more
Money.
reliable.
Money.
It means
It's
there's a
money.
bigger
Money.
likelihood. It means forget about money. Forget
No, I
about
can't
no.
because
Forget
of the
about
money.
money. Forget about money. In the beginning, when humans were starting to settle down, not being hunter-gatherers anymore, they were starting to settle down to farm the lands. Then, there was no real yet developed notion of money. They would just exchange goods. You know what I mean?
Barter.
Huh?
Barter system. Barter.
Sorry, banter. Okay, banter.
No,
Fair enough.
Barter.
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 Sure, whatever you want to call it. But my point is, it's not about money. It's about producing more. It's about the reliability of your methods.
But it's a lot more reliable permaculture.
No, it's not.
Because when you've got monoculture, you've got one particular crop, it might not succeed because of variables in climate. And that's why you end up
Yeah,
with
that happens
famines,
as well sometimes.
It
like
might not
potato
succeed,
famine.
but it will
But when
most
you've got a
likely succeed.
diversity of different crops, it's always going to be something that succeeds. You look at Plants for a Future, they've got 3,000 different varieties that can serve us as humans in a field in Cornwall. So you've always got something, and that's what we require, is more diversity, not just eating one thing, one monoculture. You know, how many different foods do we eat at the
Wait,
supermarket?
that's not the argument, is it? Our argument is about whether it's better to plow the earth, dig a hole, and put the seeds in. And my argument is, it is better. First of all, humans have been doing that throughout the beginning of, their settling down after being hunter-gatherers.
Have a look at
It's just better.
Have a look at National Trust. Okay, they're a very big body, aren't they, of landowners? The National Trust in the UK. Yeah. So they've started doing no-dig methods.
No dig methods.
No dig.
Okay.
So they're not ploughing the soil. And this is from someone, Charles Dowding, who was having different plots. One which was a no-dig, and one which was a digging method. And he was showing through statistical analysis that one was superior and one was inferior, and he was looking at different
Superior
variables.
in which way? Which way is
So,
no dig superior?
so, for example, at Sissinghurst, where they're doing no dig, last year, you remember the hot weather last year?
The what?
The hot weather
The hot
last
weather.
year. They didn't have to water once during that whole summer because they've got mulch on top. This is the fertilizer that they use. They're cutting greenery.
Okay.
You put it on top of the surface, and instead of the sun dehydrating the soil, it protects the soil, and it also produces slow-release fertilizer.
Okay, but look, that has nothing to do with actually digging the earth. It has to do with some fertilizer. You're arguing. Look,
No,
I'm
no,
asking you for arguments
it's
against the plow, against
Yeah.
digging the earth,
Yeah,
and
this
you're
is
giving
what
me
I'm saying.
fertilizers.
No,
it's a
I'm
different
saying
conversation.
that this is greenery that you put on the top. You don't dig it in. You don't have to dig it in. You just put it on
Okay,
top.
sure.
You cut it from around, and you place it.
Okay,
And
okay.
it's part
If it's
of what,
better, to do it
Yeah.
that way, why have people not started doing it that way?
But you know how it
Because-
goes. There's so many things that are better and humans still don't do it.
For example.
For example, it's not good for us to drive cars all the time, yet we still do it. The majority of people still do
Yeah,
it.
because it's faster to get where you
Yeah,
want
but it's
to
not
get.
good.
Not
For the
good for what?
For the
For the
environment.
environment. That's a different thing. Like one thing is
You
for
asked
me.
me for an example, I gave you an example.
Yeah, fair enough. But we're talking about the same thing, about amount of production, about if it's a reliable, a reliable
Yeah.
source of food. For us to produce enough to eat, we need to have a way of producing that food that's quick, that's efficient, that's good. That's what we're talking about.
efficient,
Now,
I'd say, not necessarily quick. Why quick?
well, because the quicker you can produce the food, the more people you can feed.
Quick is good if you have to send that food all around the world. You need to be fairly quick to do that. But if you need to only transport it just down the road, then that's extremely efficient, and it doesn't have to be all that quick.
Well, not every country can feed itself. For example, in Europe, most of the countries import food from other countries.
Well, this country
least a
has a
certain amount.
deficit, but that's only because we have so many animals. And we've got 130 million chickens, 30 million sheep. We've got more animals than any other country in Europe, but with regard to how much land we've got.
Okay,
and
fair
it's
enough.
highly inefficient. And so we only produce 60% of the food
But
because
to
of
be
all that
fair,
animal agriculture.
to his point, the changes that you're talking about are astronomical. Like that, to change that, because right now, because I'm not really familiar with either, but listening to him, I see his point, because he's saying that this is what we've been doing, and it's yielding results. So why change that?
Exactly.
That has to be like maybe work on that argument a bit stronger.
That's yielding results for the wealthy is how can we know what it's like to compare living in the city far from the land, not having access to land, to living in communities on the land? We haven't got that example, so how can we compare and contrast? I mean, my benefit is that I'm involved in a culture which does go onto the land and which experiences community on the land, and I find it extremely vibrant way of living. And yeah, I prefer it to the model where everyone's going to work as a cog in the wheel of a bureaucratic administrative system that's basically serving just a very few people.
So wait, what do you want people to do? Do you want people to go back to the villages?
What I was saying before, the model for me is that where you have a government based on protectionism, where you have regional grids, so you can only export energy or food from your region if you've got surplus, and you can only import if you've got deficit. Then that cuts down the movement of energy and food. And then you can break that down.
That's how it is
further.
already.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
People
When
can
you have
sell-
excessive energy, you sell it. When you have a deficit of energy, you import it. That's
But
just how it is.
individuals can export all around the world, wherever. Individuals are empowered, not regions or communities.
No,
So
companies
they start-
are empowered.
Exactly, yeah, corporate companies, corporations or individuals, wealthy individuals. So this model of protectionism of regions, you can then break down into small areas within that region, so that small businesses can be empowered for energy projects, food projects,
But
rather
how?
than all being left to...
How are those smaller? I just don't get the practicality and exactly what you want to do. Like I can hear you saying, okay, the multinational companies, the big companies, they're owning everything, blah blah blah. Fair enough, okay. But what do you want to do specifically, like concretely?
It requires land reform, for sure.
How? Will people just leave will people just leave the cities and go back to villages? Is that what you want to happen?
Yeah, I think there does need to be a return to land. I mean, the city has served for some elements of globalism. Like you've got the gross aspects of globalism, which is destroying the ecology. But you also have that.
Not necessarily.
You also have that kind of communication globalism, where the idea that what's happening on one side of the world is affecting the ecology on another side of the world. I mean, I did my dissertation on soybean production in the Amazon basin and saw how people are being displaced for a crop that was largely for animal agriculture, for people to have cheap meat. So even when I was talking about that 60%,
So wait,
we're
you want
only
people to eat
providing-
soy instead of eating meat?
no, it's the animals that are eating
Eating
the
soy.
soya.
And
Yeah.
then, okay, they were producing soy, so the animals eat soy, and then we eat the meat of the animals.
That's right. Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, so that statistic about we're only producing 60% of the food that we need because of the animal agriculture, that's not even taking into account the food we're importing from third world countries to feed those animals.
Okay.
So there's a definite deficit. If you look at Sissinghurst, that no dig, they're producing 1.6 tons of food of what would traditionally be viewed as grazing lands. Like 60% of the UK land is grazing land. And the farmers would say, we can't grow vegetables on that land. Well, what they mean is they can't get their ploughs on that land. Of course you can grow vegetables on it. But they get 1.6 tons off an acre. They may get 300 or 400 kilos of meat of the
Okay,
same
but look,
area.
you have to understand
That's
that if you
extremely
don't bring the
inefficient.
plow, if you don't bring any mechanical ways of working the land, there will be a lot more expenditure on working that land. The expenses will just plummet if you don't mechanize the production of food.
At the minute, there are lots of people in bureaucratic administrative jobs. And yeah, I believe that it would require people to come back to bringing a balance into nature. And that doesn't have to be like a horrible thing. I used to, when I was 14, I was working
It
on
won't
a...
bring any balance, man. We need food. The world is big. There's a big
exactly, that's
population.
what
We
I'm
need
saying.
lots of food.
Bringing those people into
The way
food
you want to
production.
do it simply won't produce enough food.
Of course it will.
No, it
and that's
won't.
why I'm asking you to look into permaculture systems. Check out Sissinghurst. look at permaculture systems in general.
Okay, I will, but
see how
listen
abundant-
seriously. This doesn't make a lot of sense. You don't want to plow the earth. You don't want to use any machines. You want for people to just work the land. You know that in the Middle Ages, people were doing that.
But that's what I'm saying. It's
they
not
weren't
the
producing
way
enough
that they
food for
used to do
themselves.
it. I do not believe that the Middle Ages is a paradigm of agricultural benefit. It was about, they used to get the peasants to do all sorts of inefficient things to keep people, active and
to work the land. It takes
in
a lot
order
of
that they would not
Okay.
foment rebellion. They get paid for doing all sorts of silly things like building walls and stuff.
Okay,
like that.
I'll say something now because I lived in a village when I was in Ukraine for 9 years of my life. My grandparents, they would go to work in the to work the fields, to work the crops. Because we, to a certain extent, we would feed ourselves with the crops. Then they would have their pension also to buy some other things, and sometimes we would slaughter an animal or two, stuff like that. Village life in the village. And my grandparents, they worked their asses off in the fields. A lot of time, especially in summer. Like every day except Sunday, they would go to the fields. They would work. And still, with all that work, sometimes it wouldn't be enough for us to feed ourselves. We would have to sometimes buy some new
If
things.
they were growing things, why couldn't they feed themselves with what they were growing?
Because it's not enough.
They couldn't grow enough for your family, you as a family. Because I know smallholding that provide enough for 50 families. I know people who grow on like permaculture systems who provide enough for 50 families.
Okay. One family provides for 50 families.
Yeah.
I find that very hard to believe. If they don't have any mechanization, I mean, it depends on what you perceive as a family. If you perceive like a family of 20 children...
But what I don't understand is why you can't, as one family, produce enough food
to feed ourselves.
Yeah.
Because you can't eat only potatoes.
Well, that's
you can't
why
eat
I'm saying.
only grain.
That's
you
why I'm
can't eat
saying.
only one thing.
You want to have permaculture where you're growing loads of different things, and
No,
you're
but
not
that's the
dependent.
thing. Look,
you're not dependent on the
this-
world price. 'cause
Okay.
They were growing cash
look,
crops, right?
You might use all these words that some of them I don't get about the specific
But
means.
they were growing-
But I know how people live
They
in
were
the
growing
village.
cash crops.
They were growing a few different things.
Just growing maize because maize brought most money.
No, they
But
weren't.
you
No,
didn't
no,
do
no,
that.
no,
It
no,
was
no, no,
growing
no,
what you needed,
no,
right?
no.
Yeah.
If you grow a lot of different things, it takes a lot more work and a lot more time to grow those different things. If you only grow one thing, it's much quicker to just mechanize it and do
What
it
do you need
faster.
to do for a tree that once it's
Bro,
become?
you need to
you've got
understand
an
how
apple tree, a pear
agriculture
tree,
works.
cherry trees.
If you bring a tractor or a cow or whatever to push the plow or do some stuff like that, you can basically do a field in a day. You can plow a whole field in a day. If you have different crops, like small crops of let's say 20 square meters for this thing, 20 square meters for that thing, 20 for this, 20 for that, it will take a lot longer.
But you look at the trees and the shrubs, you don't need to do anything. Once you've got a large amount of fruit trees or nut-bearing trees, once you've got a large amount of shrubs, you don't have to do anything with those.
Bro, I don't know. I don't know if you've lived in a village, but that's not as it's not as simple. In life in a village is like this. I mean, I didn't work a lot because I was 9. My grandparents didn't really make me work, but I saw them work. Occasionally, I would help them, of course. I wouldn't just sit all the time, but they didn't never made me work.
My dad was an
my point
agricultural
is-
labourer, and I used to work on a strawberry patch that was from here right to over where those trees were. That's a very demoralising thing to have to do, to think I've got to go all the way down there and pick strawberries. Yeah, I don't think that's a sustainable, positive form of agriculture.
Well, it's very hard work, man.
Yeah.
They would work very hard
Yeah.
to have the absolute minimum to feed themselves, and maybe have something to sell. Because in winter, you don't have any crops, right? You need to have some things for the winter. In the winter, you would actually have to buy food with the money you've earned by selling the excesses of your own crops.
So how many
and they
crops?
just could barely maintain themselves
How many
with all of
crops
that.
were they growing?
How many crops?
Yeah.
Okay, so there was a crop of potatoes. Of course. There were, just near our house, there were a few different crops of vegetables, of some fruits. There were some strawberries, like we had a few fruit trees, like apple trees and cherry trees. Yeah. And we had a few, small places for tomatoes, for cucumbers, stuff like that. That was the part when we had different things in the same, in the same area. Now, on a bigger shard of land, we would have almost everything for potatoes, almost everything for beans, almost everything for this or for that.
Cash crop.
And then we would sell the excesses of those crops to buy the things we didn't have. You know what I mean? And it's a very, very tedious and slow and difficult process. It's very backbreaking. I don't know why you would want to come back to that.
No, I'm not saying go back to cash crop situation. I'm saying go back to gardening, and that you can
But it's
create
even more
gardening
difficult.
systems. No, not
It's
at
even
all.
more difficult.
But
Yes.
Permaculture
you have
design.
to raise animals. When you raise animals, you get eggs and milk, then it's good. But just fruit and vegetables, very hard.
Exactly.
Very hard for what?
To get enough to feed yourself, very hard.
No,
We
it's
also
a lot more efficient.
Exactly.
to grow fruit and
We could
vegetables.
keep
It's a lot more
ourselves, like
efficient.
we could sustain ourselves mostly, and eventually, they would earn some money, but not a lot. With time. We also had animals, of course, just as I said. We had pigs. We like usually 1 or 2 pigs. We had a bunch of chickens, and that's about it. We would buy milk from other people from the village because they had cows. People would sell their milk from their cows to other people, right? And it was very useful because we would slaughter a pig once per year, and we would have part of that meat to eat in winter because that meat can be, preserved. It's very nutritious. And chickens, same thing. We would eat the eggs. We would eat the chickens. Occasionally, we would slaughter a chicken or 2. That's it, man.
But again, animal agriculture is highly inefficient. Like I've demonstrated to
Much
you.
more nutritious.
No, it's not more.
It's much more
It's not more
nutritious.
nutritious. So you get, like I was saying, on this bit of land, you get 300 or 400 kilos of meat, whereas a no-dig method on the same area of land will get 1.6 tons of food.
Why
There's
have
no-
people been
there's absolutely
raising
no-
and taking care of animals all throughout history if it's inefficient? Why?
Only
Again,
get that amount
again,
of vegetables
it's a
out
status. It's a
in an
status
ideal
thing.
What
land.
status, man?
As in, how many animals that you have was
Because the
considered
animals
status.
were wealth. There were
Exactly,
food. There was
exactly.
something to eat.
Yeah. So the domination of those animals is to do with status, not to do with efficiency.
No, it's not that.
Well, if you want to go that way, then the amount of lands you would have for the crops was also part of your status.
Yeah, and that's
just wealth.
my argument about the plough, that it allowed you to dominate more land in order to increase your status.
No, it doesn't.
But without the plough,
absolutely.
we
Why-
wouldn't
why?
be able to feed ourselves.
And so then you end up with systems where you have large cities that aren't, the majority of whom aren't producing food, and just a small part of the population that's struggling in monoculture cash crop
May I answer-
situations
may I answer
to
for
provide food for the
It's not
cities.
true. It's not true what he says. Most land is not even suited to. Only the best land is suited to grow good vegetables and fruits.
No, this is what
wait,
I'm
wait.
just
Let me
saying.
talk. I let you talk. And grow fruits. So the other land, you use the animals, and the animals can eat the grass and the lower plants, and that makes it so efficient.
But this is
and that's
exactly-
why the
They
animals
eat the
rescue the
excesses.
humans.
They eat the
and
excesses
vegans
of plant
die.
production.
But
They
this
die.
is the point.
They
It's they're
die.
saying there's 60% in the UK that they say is only fit for grazing animals. But that's nonsense.
Not just in the
All
UK,
they're
even
saying,
in Brazil.
all they're saying is that they can't get their ploughs on the field because it's too hilly or it's too heavy clay.
Sometimes the soil is
But
not
you,
good.
in
Sometimes the soil is not good.
permaculture
Or it's too
systems,
cold.
you don't need a plough. And so all that grazing land
Because
can be
permaculture
converted
is just
into
grow the
gardens.
seeds on the land and hope to God that they germinate.
No, not
It's
absolutely
not
Everybody who
reliable.
grew up in the
What if,
countryside-
dude, the birds
Look up-
just come by
look
and
up-
they eat all the seeds and
Look
that's
up-
it.
all
Look
Everything
up
is
plants for
by
the future.
animals.
Look up
You
plants for the
city
future,
people-
and they have 3,000 different varieties. You can
You
look up
city
the
people-
What do you
details.
do with the birds, with the bugs that eat the seeds that you just throw on top of the land?
Well, absolutely, you get a balance. You get a balance. But
balance?
you look in the Amazon jungle. What are they using in insecticides in biodiverse areas of the land? They're not using insecticides, are they? But there are still trees that are fruiting. There are still shrubs. There's still vegetation. A huge amount of biodiversity, but you don't need to kill all the insects.
I mean, are you comparing agriculture to the Amazon forest?
Yeah,
It
he's
doesn't
talking
work the same
nonsense.
way.
The indigenous
Absolutely,
people.
it doesn't.
No,
We
wait,
can
bro,
return
you
towards
can't
that.
possibly
No,
compare the two.
there's nothing to do.
Dude, when
The
you just
indigenous people
wait,
only eat
if
meat.
you let the seeds that you throw just compete with the herbs and with the random plants that will grow, they will never win. The seeds that humans have been putting in the earth to germinate
Yeah.
are not as compatible, not as
You have to see
competitive.
what we're eating now. We're
we're eating domesticated crops. We're not eating wild crops.
Man-made
What I'm
foods.
saying is there's a transition that can be made
To what?
from a more domesticated forms of crops.
Why? The domesticated have more food.
No.
The domesticated
Yes, of
crops
course.
They are
provide
bred.
more nutrients.
They are,
And
no,
fruits
they
and
don't.
vegetables.
Yes,
They're not
they do.
highly nutrient dense
Yes,
like
they do.
wild.
Yes,
wild
they do.
food is.
That's why that's how the agricultural revolution happened, mate.
It just
Like
it's
they
volume.
they
It's
started
creating
selecting
volume.
the grains.
It's not to do with
It has to do with volume,
creating
and it
volume,
has to
but
do
it's
with
not
more
to do with
food, man.
nutrient density.
Oh,
That's
come
different.
on. If it has more volume, it has more nutrients.
No,
it has
no,
more stuff for
absolutely
you
not.
to eat.
That's just like
Absolutely
saying
yes.
that ploughing is more efficient. It's
It
just
is more
faster.
efficient.
It's just faster. It's
People
not
have
more
been
efficient.
doing that
You can
whole
feed
thought.
more
Yeah, it's
people.
faster.
It's
It protects
faster.
the seeds
But it's
from
not
the
more
bugs and from
abundant.
the birds
It's not
and
more
all that
abundant.
stuff. Huh?
It's not more abundant. It's not more efficient.
Yeah, it is more
It's just faster.
The seeds find an easier way to germinate when the earth is softer, when you plow through it.
No, absolutely not.
Absolutely yes.
You have a look. You have a
They
look
are
at
not from the countryside,
no-dig.
they are from the city.
I mean, I don't know. He says that he's been
I
in the
brought up
village.
in the
It doesn't
countryside.
sound like you've been in the
Stop
village, man.
nonsense.
What are you talking about? I was brought up
The
in a village.
brainwash
Bro,
people.
I lived in the village for 9 years of my life.
Stop nonsense.
I saw people working on the crops. And again, as I said before,
I
it's
say
a
my
very
dad
thankless
was an
job.
agricultural worker,
It's a very
so I
thankless
know.
job.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe your dad had some technology to work his crops. Maybe he had some,
He was a worker.
tractor or something.
He didn't own the land.
My grandparents
because
did.
he had the wrong ideas in his mind. If he was clever, it was his land. He would be a farmer,
like the aristocrats,
and he would
so
have
why
animals.
Yeah, well, the cowboys have won. It's true. But actually, they're destroying the ecology. So no one wins in the end.
You know who
So landowners might
vegans
scoff.
would destroy the ecology.
The landowners might scoff
Vegans will
and say,
destroy
all
the
you
ecology.
people of the city can rot
No.
because you don't nothing.
Vegans
Yeah, that- I don't
destroy
like
the
that
ecology.
Okay, wait. Let's imagine for a second that you're right. Let's imagine that for some, for God's will, the seeds will germinate better if you don't help them germinate. If you don't make the earth
I'm not
softer,
saying in
if you don't
permaculture
protect them,
systems
if
they
you
do
don't protect them,
provide,
if you
they
don't
do
protect
do
them
help.
from birds. Let's say they just germinate better. Let's just say it that way, and it's more environment friendly.
If there's no animals, the birds will die out.
Exactly.
Because they live
Wait,
off
wait,
the
wait,
dung.
wait.
These
Now-
people are
now think with
brainwashed
me
to
for
the
a
top.
How do you plan to implement this? Like, you need to be realistic. How
Permaculture
do you-
systems are doing
No,
it.
but how do you plan to make all agriculture to go that way? It won't produce more.
That's a
never
deeper
gonna happen.
question.
If it's implemented,
no,
people
hang
will
on. You're
stop.
saying two
It's as
things
simple as
now.
that.
You're saying two things now. One, you're saying, how do you implement it? That's one question.
Yeah, because
and then you're saying it doesn't work. Well, what I'm
because it
saying is you
doesn't
take a microcosm and you see, well, this system is highly abundant and works well. Then the question is, how do we transfer that on a bigger scale? But what you're saying is, how do we implement it and then say, oh, it doesn't work?
No, look, okay, I hope I'm explaining myself well enough. I said, let's imagine
Yeah.
that you can implement it.
Yeah.
Let's imagine that you can somehow implement it. First of all, how will you make everybody just do what you want? How will
that's
you make
one
them
question.
act that way?
Yeah, that's
and the
one
second question is, if it's implemented, if by some miracle it's implemented in the whole world, do you not think that seeing that less food will be produced and it will be produced
You're
more
making
slowly,
that assumption.
No,
what's
but
your
I'm-
assumption? How do you assume that the same amount of food will be produced?
Well, you look
want
at
to-
small
you want
scale.
to-
You
want
look
to-
at small scale.
You want to demechanize the production of food. You want to stop plowing the earth. You want to stop using pesticides and herbicides and whatever. You want it to be completely natural. How will you produce the same, even close to the amount of food we're producing now with that way of
All
producing?
you have to do is you look at a small scale project and you see which is more abundant. And then you make the judgment. That's why I'm saying to do some research.
What do you mean small scale?
Well, like I was saying, look at Sissinghurst, that's doing no-dig method. Look at how much water it requires compared to monoculture systems, and then see, yeah, that works, and that provides for the community there. So let's scale it up.
Bro, not every part of the earth where people live is fit to be, farmed.
But this is what I'm saying.
It's farmland, not every part.
The large area, 60% of the UK grazing land, is perfectly fit for growing vegetables, but they say it's not. Because they're thinking of ploughing systems, they're not thinking of permaculture systems.
Yeah, but then
Because permaculture doesn't help, man. Simply put, you're just throwing the seeds and
How do you
hoping
know? You
that they
haven't
will be
researched it.
as competitive as the random herbs. The random herbs will always be more competitive.
If you create permaculture systems, you create permaculture beds, you can still plant seeds in modules and then you transfer them into that bed.
Okay, so to plant permaculture, you need to first eradicate all plant life that is there before the culture.
Yeah, so you still create space, but you have your trees, you have your shrubs, and you have your vegetables all in the same space. You have your fruit bushes, you have that, and you're effectively creating a food garden. A monoculture system.
Praise the Lord.
Praise the Lord. I'm getting in.
Ways to use these things. We can't stop humans doing things that they want to do.
Come take over everything from your humanity.
Come, man, say it straight. Man, don't listen to BBC. Man, don't listen to ITV.
Yes. Listen, bro, I don't know. There's still safe ways to use everything. But they come up with them, yeah. Cocaine, all of these drugs, LSD, they all have their properties, yeah? And there's all ways that they could be administered for certain specific reasons. I'm not saying we all need to be taking it, but to criminalize something, even for